We just got back from seeing Serenity.
And we'll be back to talk about that right after this.
Hi folks, welcome back to Pop Pop Fizzle. I'm Jeff.
I'm Heidi.
And we are here to do our non-spoiler review for Serenity. Now we will do some spoiler talk toward the end of this video, but we'll give you fair warning about that before we do. Serenity, directed by Joss Whedon, starring Nathan Fillion, Summer Glau.
I know, those fight scenes were the best.
We are kidding. We are actually...
I actually wondered if you were going to do that.
What's that?
Refer to a previous film known as Serenity.
Wait, there's more than one?
There's more than one.
Yeah, this Serenity actually stars Matthew McConaughey and Hathaway and a few other familiar faces. So they're the main two, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But if you watch our channel frequently, you know that we did a reaction to this trailer like what seems like forever ago.
Like 6 months? Probably 3 in the scheme of things, but it seems like 6 months.
Yeah, but for me it feels like an eternity ago.
Yeah, at least.
We had some speculations about this film, and we'll talk about that in the spoiler section of this talk. But for right now, we're strictly non-spoiler, so we're going to go forward with that. Now, from the trailers, we understand sort of the basic gist of this involves a fisherman played by Matthew McConaughey. When a former flame played by Anne Hathaway comes back into his life, she's in sort of an abusive situation, and she asks him for help in the form of offing her abusive husband.
Yep.
That's all we really get from the trailer. Little bits and pieces, little hints of some other things, and again, we'll dig into that a little bit more on the spoiler side of this. But just on the whole, when you're looking at this as a film, as far as the production, the acting, the look of it, the whole thing, story, whatever, how did you feel about this particular movie?
I felt like it was pretty. I enjoyed the movie, and I thought it was well done.
Yeah, this is an R-rated movie, so quite a bit of language and some adult situations, so definitely not something to take the kids to. But
you do see Matthew McConaughey's rear a couple times.
Anne Hathaway's as well.
Oh, this is true.
Yeah, but aside from, but again, R-rated, so you're probably not going to be taking your kids to this anyway. But yeah, so for me, visually interesting to look at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
there were no shots that made me go, oh, that was really well done. It wasn't that kind of thing. Like sometimes I'm watching, Shyamalan or Fincher or somebody, and I'm like, wow, that's a really cool shot. Really done well. It wasn't that kind of thing, but nothing made me feel like I would have done that differently. Or, I wouldn't have.
It was fairly straightforward.
Yeah, pretty straightforward. Everything served the story, I felt like, for the most part. There is one thing that's a technical thing, but I can't really get into it without us being in spoiler section, so I'll try to remember to do that as we move forward. But story-wise, everything made sense to me. I didn't really have too much of an issue with that, and we'll talk more specifics there later. But I enjoyed my time in the theater. That's kind of, when we're talking non-spoiler and when we're trying to rate things for you guys, because we're not critics, so first understand that. This is not a professional pursuit of ours. We're just people who enjoy movies.
And we like to
talk about them. So we do that for you. And hopefully over the course of time that you're with our channel, if you get a feel for what we tend to like and not like, and how that kind of connects to what you like and don't like, then maybe we'll be helpful in that sense at some point. But really, it's just us talking about our thoughts about these films. So for me, I didn't feel bored at any point.
No.
Nothing pulled me out of the film.
It definitely didn't drag.
It didn't drag. I didn't feel like, I didn't feel like I should run out and get my ticket to see it again. But I also didn't feel like it was a waste of time. I enjoyed my time in the theater. And so a lot of times for me, when we're thinking about how we're going to rate things, I have to factor that in. Like, did I ever feel like, I got up and went to the restroom at one point in this movie.
Me too.
And I kind of hated to have to get up because I was in.
Yeah.
So there are movies that we go see where it's like, I don't care. I'm going to get up and go. And I'll go get myself a refill and another popcorn or whatever. And it's just like, I didn't feel that way with this. I didn't want to be gone too long. I wanted to make sure I was back at my seat.
Yep.
So anyway, but that's just about for me, that's a part of how I recommend things, because not every movie feels like it's worth our time.
No.
This never felt like a Lifetime movie or a
No.
movie that I would necessarily just come across randomly on Netflix or whatever. That's not like, because a lot of those, it's like there aren't any names attached to it.
Oh, well, yeah. If you want to look at it in that fashion, yeah.
Right. Or there's a name attached to it. This had a good, solid cast.
Mm-hmm.
Diane Lane was in this. Mm-hmm. She played Constance. So some good caliber actors and actresses involved in this situation. That said, before we get into spoiler territory, we want to grade this thing, and it's kind of hard to talk about this film without getting into a little bit of spoiler territory. So we'll definitely kind of break it down a little bit more as we go forward. But before we get to spoiler town, in this case, or spoiler island, I guess I should say, let's get into grading. So the way we grade things on this channel normally is with Pop Pop Fizzle, which is our name. So if something's a fizzle, obviously don't bother, it's not worth your time. If it's a pop, it means it's worth seeing, maybe not on the big screen, but definitely check it out as soon as it's streaming or Redbox or whatever. And if it's a double pop, that means rush out, see it in the theater, pay the big ticket price. It's worth every penny. So based on that sort of criteria, Heidi, where are you going to land with this one?
I think I'm going to have a solid pop. Like, I really don't feel like there was much that really needed to be on a big screen. I enjoyed my time there, but you could absolutely enjoy this movie at home with a Redbox or a streaming rental or whatever it is that you do to watch movies at home. So, solid pop for me.
I'm going to land with you there on the solid pop. Like Heidi said, I don't feel like visually there's anything that requires the big screen treatment. I don't think you're going to be missing any detail on the small screen. Now, I enjoyed my time in the big screen. Mm-hmm. I enjoyed my time seeing this movie, but I don't think it requires it. I don't think it's necessary for enjoyment of this particular film. So, with that being the case, you might want to wait for this to hit video, whether it's streaming or rental. But if you are strapped for something to see this weekend, maybe you've seen everything that's out there and you want to take a date night or go out and with some friends and see something, this might be good programming for you that's alternate from everything else that's out there. But for us, it's just going to be a pop, which is still solid, worth seeing, just not necessarily on the big screen.
Yep.
Yeah. Now we're going to move into the spoiler section, so you should be seeing a little warning down here that's counting down to spoilers. We're going to discuss spoilers. So if you haven't seen the movie and you plan to jump off now, you can come back to this whenever you've seen the movie. If you've already seen the movie, go ahead and stick around. We're going to talk about some specifics now.
And also, if you just don't care and want to hear spoilers, that's okay,
This is true. Yeah.
We're okay with that.
Yeah.
You can choose your own adventure.
That's trademarked, actually. So we're going to talk some details and spoilers right now. Now, if you watched our reaction to this trailer, and we'll try to remember to put the link down in the comments below.
Yep.
If not, you can search for it on our channel. But when we did that trailer reaction, I think I said to you that there were a few bits and pieces in that trailer that made me think something strange was going on. And that everything wasn't as simple and straightforward as it seemed. One of those things being that there was a shot of a map in the trailer where we saw that the island that they're on isn't surrounded by a whole lot. Yeah. And so that actually does come into play in the course of the film. We get to see several maps, and on all of those maps, it's really just that island that's there.
I did start out watching this film trying to figure out exactly where they were. I mean, it looked kind of Caribbean. It looked like it could have been like somewhere down there in like somewhere
Bahamas,
Jamaica,
something like that.
I was getting like a Jamaica vibe for it. It was like it was fishing was involved, and I'm like, where did tuna swim? Where does swordfish swim?
Yeah,
I was then in the same place as a shark, and I was like, I really couldn't think about that because I don't know the migration habits of fish. Right. But I was still trying to figure out like where do people normally fish for those things, and I really couldn't couldn't land on anything, but it just looked kind of Caribbean-ish. So it was like very generic, but also enough so that we knew that there were people from the States that were there, then people that were from other places, and then people who were native to the island. So it was just interesting mix of people.
But the other thing in the trailer that made me think that something strange would be happening in the course of the movie was the woman that owns the tackle shop or whatever. There's a thing where he says to her something about what's going on and what she knows about what's going on, if she knows anything at all. Mm-hmm. And she goes from having a really concerned expression, this is in the trailer, she goes from having a really concerned expression to going, have a good time out there. You know, and it's like her expression changes.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, that's weird. And then another scene involving, I can't remember if his first or last name was Reed, but the person from the tackle company.
First name was Reed.
Reed, yeah.
Last name was Miller, I think.
Reed Miller? Really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anyway, but no, I didn't remember Miller being a name in this movie at all.
Pretty sure that was his name.
It doesn't matter. But anyway, but the character of Reed with his little glasses and the suit, there was something in the trailer about him, too, that made me think there was something Twilight Zone-y going on with this film. So much so that I imagined what the idea for this film might be, and I incorporated a version of that into a story that I'm working on, or that I was working on at the time. Thankfully, this is not exactly that. That would have been awkward.
That would have been very unfortunate.
Yes, but this movie does have the twist in it that everything that we're seeing on this island is actually inside of a video game that was designed by the boy that's the actual son of Patrick, which is the son of Matthew McConaughey's character and Anne Hathaway's character. And so you get the feeling throughout as it kind of begins to be revealed that there's just some strangeness happening. And slowly they kind of unfurl it. We learned some about the son. We learned some about Kate was Anne Hathaway's character, yes?
Karen, that's
right. Karen and her new relationship and how abusive it is. We learned, and that whole thing was just gross to me.
Oh.
Her calling him daddy and all that. It was very very disturbing.
Very gross.
Not to mention the fact that we knew that he was an abusive jerk. So all of that, they begin to kind of unfurl the bigger narrative, and I like the notion that it plays with of here's the rules, here's the story, here's where it's supposed to go, but you keep doing all these things that don't really fit that flow, and so what's happening there? And then we find out it's because the rules are being rewritten. It's because the boy is coding a new path, a new story. All of that I thought was interesting. However, I know from seeing a couple of headlines, I haven't watched any reviews for this, but I know from seeing a couple of headlines on from a couple of entertainment like magazines and things as I scroll through Apple News that some people aren't sure what to make of this, and maybe critics aren't loving this film. And I think some of that may be that it really was advertised in a way that unless you were really honed in on details in that trailer, you wouldn't have got the Twilight Zone vibe from it.
Yeah, you would have just gotten that this was just like your run-of-the-mill generic thriller sort of, revenge-ish type story.
Which wouldn't necessarily excite me if that's all I thought it was going to be. I don't think I would have gone to see it if I hadn't suspected that it was going to be something different.
Yeah. I actually wasn't, I forgot that we reviewed the trailer because I was just like, whatever. Right. And so I was scrolling through to see what movies were playing this week, and I was like, oh, the only thing that's playing is this Serenity movie. He's like, yeah, we wanted to see that. I'm like, okay. Well, you got a review for the channel. Yay.
So we saw it, so you don't have to, except that you might enjoy it.
You might actually enjoy it. If you're watching this, you probably should have enjoyed it by now.
Yeah, but I think maybe some of the critical sort of thing is that maybe people went in expecting one thing, and they felt like those expectations were not met, or that they got sold a bill of goods and they didn't really get what they thought they were buying.
Expectations subverted. It should be exciting and interesting.
I think since The Last Jedi, subverting expectations isn't necessarily considered a good thing for some people. I would hope that critics, again, we're not critics and don't consider ourselves such, but I would hope that professional critics would be a little more open-minded about letting the story go where the story's going to go.
Yeah.
And I thought all the acting in this was solid.
Yeah, I think so.
I felt really awkward and bad for Anne Hathaway throughout this movie. Matthew McConaughey, is Matthew McConaughey. He always turns in a pretty solid performance.
Yep.
Like, I didn't have a problem with any of that.
I think once I realized, because the thing is, like, one of the things that got me right away in the movie was the radio station that was playing, and it was too specific to our main character. And I was like, It was just a little too much, and I was like, that's really weird. And then like hearing that the boy heard his thoughts at all times, I was like, And then finally the reveal that it was like a video game, I was like, oh, okay, everyone else here is an NPC. Got it. Cool.
Right.
I was like, that's why they were so weird everywhere, and that's why that guy was, the one chasing him around, because he with the rules. I'm like, is this guy from the future? What is happening? I was like, got it. All right, now I understand. Right. And then as soon as I did, I was like, oh, well, this makes perfect sense. This is great.
Right.
So I enjoyed it.
But in that story notion of this all being inside a video game, there are a few things that bothered me given that framework. Mm-hmm. So one is a technical thing, one is a story thing. So from a story standpoint, unless you're telling me that some sort of learning, growing artificial intelligence is involved, having the characters behave the way that Matthew McConaughey's character didn't necessarily make sense to me. A character in a game shouldn't be able to think outside of their parameters, unless that's a notion that you're building into the framework of the story.
I'm not sure it was built in a slow way, but it did. I mean, I don't remember what I was hearing, but it was somewhere somebody talking about video games and somebody
under the water
becoming self-aware.
Okay.
So he became self-aware and thus was able to kind of be able to think.
Gotcha.
So it was.
Still, I wish there had been a little bit more on that notion.
Yeah, just kind of.
And I think it was mainly because we spent all our time in the game that we didn't really get that explanation.
Yeah,
so that's a nitpicky kind of thing, but it's one of those things that kind of bothered me. For instance, and here's another thing. For instance, why does a video game character need to drink? Why is a video game character affected by drink? Why, there are questions like that where once you tell me that I'm in a framework that's coding, I begin to wonder how even the most brilliant boy in the world could program all these variables and all these things. So the notion of the one character sending money to his granddaughter for college and all these other things, like, why is all this written into this program?
Right, yeah. Why is it that he literally physically couldn't get out of bed before 5 a.m.?
Right. Yeah, so a lot of things like that are just interesting notions, but I question, and maybe some of that was dealt with. Maybe some things made it into
maybe there's some
the cutting room floor.
Yeah, some deleted scenes.
But the technical thing that bothered me was right at the end, after we sort of understand what's going on, the bad guy's dead, we're dealing with he gets the phone call from his son, right? Mm-hmm. And they talk about meeting at the Serenity, and then you start seeing the world, Dad, I'm going to change the game so that we can be together, or whatever. Yeah. All the visualness, all the visual side of the pixels and stuff coming undone felt a little cheaply done to me. After the good visuals of the rest of the film, because everything was so reality based that once you threw in sprites and pixels and all this stuff into things being unmade and swirling around him, it looked really fake compared to what we were. And
the thing is, meanwhile, like, he's changing the game so he can be. Is he killing himself? What? Like, that's what I was thinking. Like, how's this kid putting himself in the game? Well, how's that gonna work?
I think he's just making himself a character.
I know, but I was like, but it made me wonder.
But I did like the notion that saying there at the end that somewhere, somehow, there's a you and a me that's together. That notion. I like that. And I mean, if you
that
believe
in was kind of sweet.
And if you believe in multiverse theory, that's true. Somewhere I'm Superman. That's all I'm saying. But yeah, no. So I think that maybe there were a couple of points of execution that could have been done better. But nothing pulled me out. Nothing made me go, okay, I give up. you know, and that there are movies that do that. We,
Cinderman. What?
Slenderman? There was a movie the other night and actually we did a reaction to this movie on the channel. Didn't do a review for it because I just watched it on streaming with my oldest daughter the other night when you were at work. The movie Mara. Do you remember us watching
yeah, I remember that trailer.
So we watched that and it was okay. It was actually better than I was expecting it to be until it got to the ending. And the ending was just like, it's like you've been watching this baseball game build up. It has nothing to do with baseball. I'm just giving a metaphor. It's like watching people set up for a baseball game. You're excited. You got good seats. You get there. You get your hot dog and your soda or your beer or whatever it is you're enjoying that day. And the players take the stands and everything and then like literally right before the first pitch is thrown, it rains out and everybody goes home. Like it got to the end where you were just waiting for the crack of the bat. And it just ended badly.
Wow.
And it was like, that was disappointing.
A waste of time?
Yeah, I was with you. I was with you right up until the end. And then you gave me an ending that made no sense.
So this is a half-hearted review / spoiler for Mara.
But,
half because I didn't even see it.
Yeah, it's just again. But what I'm saying is, this movie wasn't like that to me. Like I never felt like I'm in. Oh, I'm out. I was in all the way through. There were just a couple of things that were nitpicky things that bothered me.
Triangle-y, pixely things. They could have gone for like a flip the scenery sort of thing, like Matrix-y,
or even just gone like wireframe with him in a void with a bunch of wires being moved around and whatever, and then it rendering out into.
But we're not actually creative directors, and we don't know how much time or energy
or how much budget they have.
Yeah, exactly. Time, energy, budget. Yes, yeah. You have something fast, you can have something good, or you can have something quick, but you can't have all three.
Right.
Like fast, quick. Wait, fast, good, cheap. There you go. There you go. Those are the three. You can't have all three. So I guess they chose for fast and cheap.
Yeah, maybe.
Instead of
good.
Yeah.
But it didn't throw me out. It was just something I was like, they could have done that a little bit better.
It's okay.
Yeah.
If that's the worst part of the film, then whatever.
But the overall story, I mean, like, I thought, like, a movie like that you're selling in a certain way and just to get me into the story, like you were saying, that the island itself, you couldn't quite pinpoint maybe where it was supposed to be, but everything looked real. Like the notion of the bar where all the locals hang out and the way that the streets looked and how everything was compact. It wasn't a big island. So there weren't a lot of places to go.
Everyone knew everything. I'll have to say that the island looked kind of like Martha's Vineyard. Well, just a little bit, like the shape and the size. So maybe that's how big that was the comparison that they had. Sorry, I've had to look a couple of times and see what Martha's Vineyard looks like.
You said Martha, and suddenly all fighting stopped everywhere. Martha, it's the magic word. Anyway, that's it for us. Those are our spoilery thoughts. And of course, if you've seen the movie, then you weren't shocked by anything that we just said, but definitely we'd like to hear from you. Just be sensitive to the fact that maybe some people have not seen the movie yet. Use the spoiler tag if you're going to talk about it down below. If you like this video,
hit the thumbs up
and consider subscribing to the channel. We're growing a little bit all the time. We appreciate that, every single one of you.
Very exciting.
If you're already subscribed to the channel, be sure and hit the bell icon so you can be notified the next time we drop one of these. And until the next time, folks.
Bye.
Bye.